Welcome back to the Mountain Man Medical YouTube channel. Thanks for hanging out. Today we're going to be talking about some of the items that I think that you're going to need to have in your trauma kit when you're out hunting. And this doesn't always have to apply to just hunting, right? We want to be able to take care of ourselves anytime we're in the outdoors because we have some significant limitations while we're out there. When you're out in the mountains, you have some significant limitations, and primarily it's going to be the remote location that you're at. It's going to take you a long time to get to a hospital because as medics, we don't save people's lives. We only stabilize people long enough so that they can get to the hospital so a surgeon can save their life. So we need to be able to manage basic trauma emergencies with things like tourniquets and direct pressure and good splinting until we can get that casualty off the mountaintop. Now, the other problem that you're going to have is you're going to need significant weight reductions in your kit. For me personally, I try to carry as little items as possible because I don't want to be hurting as I'm hiking up and down that mountaintop. I've spent too much time hiking with way too much weight and I'm done with it. So instead, I try to make sure that my kit is as light as possible. The problem is that there's just some things that you can't go without. You need a coat. You're going to need a backpack and a water source, and you're definitely going to need some sort of trauma gear. So here's the strategy that I recommend that you employ when you're out there hunting for whatever it is that you're after. So ideally, you're going to have an individual first aid kit, and this is going to be something that you're going to carry on your body. So you want this to be nice and lightweight because you're going to be wearing this on your belt, and you don't want to be carrying too many items, but you do want to be able to take care of some of the more important emergencies like your bleeding control, your wound packing, and also being able to splint injuries, especially if you have somebody who falls and gets a fracture of some kind, which is something that happens all the time. You need to be able to use some of the materials in your kit as splinting material. So having a small kit on you at all times and making sure that everybody in your hunting party has their own kit, because you don't want to be using your stuff on somebody else and then you get hurt and you don't have anything for you. So if they have their own hunting IFAK, that's an important thing to do so that you can use their equipment on them and keep yours for if you get injured while you're trying to get them off the mountaintop. The next thing that you're going to want to make sure that you have is extra equipment, because this isn't going to be a whole lot. You might have a lot more injuries than you're able to take care of with just this. So having this at your campsite or in your truck, in your ATV, on your boat, or wherever the case that you might need this, you have extra equipment to take care of multiple injuries. Especially if that person is especially messed up, you might run out of tourniquets. If two limbs are injured and you only have the one tourniquet, then you want to make sure that you have extra equipment on standby. But obviously you don't want to carry this. This is a lot of stuff, and this is going to be miserable for you to carry up and down the mountaintop. That's why it's more important to have something a little smaller, something that can take care of a wide variety of injuries and the most important injuries. So here at Mountain Man Medical, obviously one of our primary interests is taking care of the outdoorsman. So that's why we're officially releasing our tracker, which is our individual first aid kit size, and then the base camp. And like I've already said, this is designed to be staged at your base camp in your vehicle, your boat, or your ATV, and this one is designed to be worn on your body. So if you're going to purchase everything in this kit individually, it will come out to $85.24, but we are offering this at $70, which is a savings of over 20% retail if you order it from us. So you are totally welcome to go and source all of these materials yourself, but if you buy it from us, you'll get a discount because we're putting it all together for you. So let's go over some of the items in the kit. I'm going to start with the tracker. So these are the items. If you want to source these yourself, put them in your own kit, in your own bag, totally welcome to do that. These are the items I think will help you out the most. So let's break into it. First, on the outside is going to be your trauma shears. Now this is an item that you can either take or leave depending on how much weight you want to reduce, but these are pretty lightweight. They're multi-function items. I like having these because I'll use them for everything, opening up my snacks, my jerky bags, cutting 550 cord, or whatever the case is. I've always got these nearby and on me. Love to have these when I'm out in the field. But in an emergency, in a trauma situation, we want to be able to cut these clothes off of the casualty, get eyes on the wound so that we know exactly what it is that we're dealing with, and we're using the correct technique to manage that wound so that we're providing the best possible outcome for that casualty. So a good pair of trauma shears, good idea. I like these small ones because the reduction of the weight, but still a very lightweight item. Take them or leave them. Next thing we have in the kit is going to be Band-Aids. And this is going to be your most used item. Obviously, you're probably not going to be taking massive injuries all the time. You're going to be taking minor cuts and abrasions and little things. So I always have Band-Aids stuck right on top because I'll just open up the kit and they're going to be right there on top where I can use them. And there might be other things that you can add into this kit. Maybe you need more Band-Aids, or maybe you want to put in some Neosporin, some triple antibiotic ointment, or some Motrin and Tylenol, that kind of stuff. Motrin and Tylenol is something that I always take with me anytime I'm going out to the woods or something like that. My hunting party, everybody forgets their own, so I go around and I divvy it out at the end of the day. The campfire, everybody's sitting around cooking their chow, and I'll go around and pass out some Motrin and Tylenol because they've been hiking up and down the mountaintops, and that's always really appreciated. So having some of that in your kit might be beneficial for you. Next item that I think you're going to need is going to be your quick clot or your wound packing material. And this is impregnated with a hemostatic agent, and hemostatic is just a fancy word for it makes the blood clot quicker. So this is kind of expensive. If you can't afford this, I would recommend just getting some normal regular gauze. That'll still work very, very well for wound packing. It just won't have that additional clotting factor that the quick clot will have. The tourniquet that I recommend that you carry, you can carry any tourniquet that you want, but this is my favorite one to carry because this is a multi-use item. I've got a YouTube video talking about the many qualities of the SWAT T. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'm going to drop a link up here so that you can go and check that video out. This is a fantastic multi-use item. You can use it as a tourniquet, chest seal, not for wound packing, but for pressure bandages. You can use this for pretty much anything that you need to. You're only limited by your own creativity. This is a fantastic tourniquet and will work well for a wide variety of wounds, not just on your arms and legs. The next item that I think that you might want to have is going to be a good pair of gloves. And this is completely dependent on you and who you're with, but you never know who your hunting partner might be, or maybe you just come up on somebody on the trail who's injured and you don't know what types of diseases that they might have. A good pair of gloves might be beneficial for you. The next thing that I'm going to recommend that you have is going to be tape of some kind. This is a flat folded duct tape, and you might need this to secure splints and a wide variety of other things. You might even be able to use this to tape down a chest seal if that's something that you need to do. And the flat pack helps it to pack nice and neat into your kit, so it's not taking up additional room. Having additional wound packing material and gauze for minor injuries and other types of wounds that you might have is going to be important. You might also be able to use this to tie on a splint or to make a sling or something like that. So having extra wound packing material and gauze is always beneficial, and we've got 2 in this particular kit. And the last thing that you're going to need to have is going to be a way to keep your casualty warm. Anytime that somebody has lost a lot of blood, and especially in a traumatic situation, that they are at risk of going into hypothermia. And if they go into hypothermia, then they are at a much greater risk of death. So we want to try to keep that casualty warm. Even on a hot summer day, they are still at risk of hypothermia. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of them. If they are cold and wet, we need to get those cold, wet clothes off of them, get them into a sleeping bag, build a fire, get them into the cab of a truck. But if you aren't able to do that because you're in a very remote location, having a survival blanket on you is one of those items that could save the day in the long run. So after you have taken care of all of the injuries, you're confident that the bleeding is controlled, then we want to make sure that we're keeping that casualty warm. And a survival blanket, especially one like this that packs down nice and flat and nice and easy into your kit, it's going to be an essential thing. It doesn't weigh a whole lot, packs really well, and this could be a life-saving item in your kit. And the last thing that you're going to need is going to have a good way to carry it. I like to have some Velcro items with easy, recognizable first aid patch on there so that if somebody runs up to you and you're unconscious and you can't talk to them, they see this on you, they're going to pull this off and hopefully use it to save your life. So having an easily identifiable bag is one of those important items. All right, so we already talked about the IFAK. This is And this is the one that you're going to carry on your body for an emergency. But this isn't a whole lot of stuff, and you might have a bigger injury than this can take care of. And that's why it's nice to have additional supplies back at your base camp, at your tent, in your truck, on your ATV, in your boat, someplace where you can go to get additional trauma gear if you need it. You don't want to be improvising trauma gear, especially in the woods. Sometimes you can't get around it and you're just going to have to. But if we don't have to, then we don't want to. It'll take a lot more time and it will be far less effective than having your pre-made quality trauma kit on you with cat tourniquets and that kind of stuff. So this is going to be your base camp. This is what you're going to leave at the camp, and then as you get your casualty back to that location, you can have additional items to take care of them and then further transport that casualty off of the mountaintop and keep them stabilized until they can get to that hospital. On the outside of the base camp, we've got these tourniquet pouches for quick access of tourniquets so that you can get to them nice and quickly. And it also frees up space on the inside to get more material here. So we've got 2 tourniquets if you need them. And then on the inside, we'll open this up and take a look at what we've got here. We're gonna start with this little pocket here, and this is going to have a lot of your comfort items. This is gonna be the stuff that you're not going to necessarily use to save somebody's life, but we're gonna have some things that kind of improve our quality of life when we're out in the mountains. Some of those things are going to be here in this kit, such as your first aid items, like Band-Aids. Always the number one item that I always use. One of my favorite things to do when I was with the Marines is when they would come and ask me for Band-Aids, I'd have those little pretty pink princess Band-Aids, and I would just hand them out, and they hated that, which is why I did it. Also in here, we've got a bunch of different types of ointments. We've got our triple antibiotic ointment. We've got sting and bite pad. We've got first aid burn cream, which is kind of nice, especially if you get burned by hot brass. You're probably not going to be dumping too much brass when you're out there on the mountaintop shooting at elk. But if you do happen to get that, those are the most common burns that I've seen is from brass burns. But you also have the campfire. People hanging around, reaching down and picking up a pan and then maybe getting burned. So having some burn cream when you're out on the mountains is one of those comfort items that will be really appreciated, especially kind of those sting and bite pads. If you're out there and you get stung or bit by an insect, having something to kind of take care of that's important. And of course your little Motrin and Tylenol. Now I would recommend that you have more Motrin and Tylenol than this. This is kind of an emergency stash if you don't have anything else. I would pad this up if I could. And that might be something that you're going to want to do with any of this equipment, is carry your own stuff, the things that you're going to need. If you are allergic to bees and that kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend having your EpiPen staged somewhere in this kit, and especially on you in your trauma kit if you can put it in there. But making sure that you have your EpiPen nearby in case you're allergic to bees is going to be one of those essential items. So comfort items, first aid items, basic little minor wound care items are going to be the things that you're going to use the most. So having those stocked up all the time is going to be essential. Next, we're going to get into our bleeding control, and here we have the Elias modular bandage, and this is my preferred battle dressing. This is a large pressure dressing to be able to manage moderate to severe bleeding. This is what you're going to use in order to take care of your junctional wounds. So if you take a stick to the throat or something like that, we can patch that up because a tourniquet's not going to work on your neck, right? So we want to have a way to manage that, and the Elias is a fantastic way of doing that. It comes with wound packing material in it already so that you can just break that out, immediately start packing the wound, and then get direct pressure to manage that bleeding control. So this is a fantastic item. I highly recommend it. The other thing that this is going to have is a cup on it, and that cup is going to put more localized pressure over the wound site to help control that bleeding a little bit better. But the other thing that we can use that for is we can cut off that little cup and put that over an eye injury or something like that to help manage that casualty in the field until they can get to the hospital. The next item that you're going to want to have is more gloves. We've got 4 pairs of gloves in here so that you can pass those out to other responders who are helping you out. But one of the things that I've noticed a lot is ripping through those gloves, especially in an emergency situation. You're sweaty and nervous and you jerk on those pair of gloves and you rip right through them. So having an extra set to put on over top of those in case you do tear some is a good item to have. Another thing that you're going to have is some ace wraps or some elastic bandages. And I really prefer these hook and loop closures over those ones with the nasty little clips. Those nasty little clips go flying. You'll never find them in the long grass, and they're just a pain. Having hook and loop closures so that it just seals on itself, you don't have to use those clips, one of the most important things. These can be used as an improvised pressure dressing, the same as you would with your Olias, but you can also use this to wrap your ankles, knees, and other types of sports injuries that you might have out there while you're doing your overuse injury, you're hiking. This might be a beneficial thing for your sports injuries, your sprains and strains. Next item is going to be crinkle compressed gauze, and this is just going to be more wound packing material. You need to have lots of wound packing material because you might have a huge wound. The bigger the wound, the more wound packing material you need. This is very cheap, very effective at controlling bleeding for that. Back behind there, we've got the moldable splint. This is the Mountain Man Medical branded medical splint, and this is very, very similar to your SAM splints, if you know what that is. This is flat packed so that it sits nice and neat here in this little pocket, and then you're just going to pull this out and use this to stabilize your injuries, any fractures or any problems that you might have when with fall injuries. This is a great item to have so you don't have to go and find sticks to improvise a splint. So this isn't going to work on your large injuries like your legs. If you have a leg fracture or something like that, probably won't be very beneficial for that. But your long bones in your arm and then your lower leg, your ankle and that kind of stuff will be treated pretty well with a moldable splint. Medical tape is going to be another one of those items that's going to come in real handy. You can use this for minor wounds. So if you have a large wound that's too big for a Band-Aid but not big enough for a tourniquet, then you might need to secure it with some gauze, and some tape might be a beneficial way to do that. Especially when you're out in the woods, stuff gets dirty so quick. So you want to make sure that you're taking a look at that wound every night before you go to bed and making sure that it's nice and clean and that you change your dressing, because it's going to get dirty really fast as you're out there climbing around the mountains. So having some additional medical tape on you to continue to take care of those wounds and make sure they don't get infected, a pretty important thing. Just like in the tracker kit, we have a way of taking care of hypothermia. I already talked about why that's so beneficial. So I really recommend that you have some sort of a survival blanket. It packs really well and easy into the kit, and it doesn't weigh a whole lot. And it's a fantastic way of keeping your casualty alive and making sure they don't get hypothermic. We got some trauma shears, already talked about why that's important. One of the things that you're going to want to make sure that you have is a nasopharyngeal airway. This is a way to protect the casualty's airway so that they can breathe while they're unconscious. An unconscious person won't protect their own airway. When they're lying on their back, their tongue can fall to the back of their throat and occlude their airway, and you have to manage that manually. You either have to do a head tilt chin lift, where you rock their head back, but if they have a fall injury, then that can put significant problems on their neck. So we don't want to do that if they have any kind of head trauma at all, right? So a great way of managing that airway so that you don't have to sit there and do it yourself the entire time is to have a nasopharyngeal airway. And this is pre-lubricated. This is very important. A lot of the NPAs that you'll see out there on the market will come with a little lube pack. And it's a little annoying because those little packs of lube tend to go missing. And this one is pre-lubricated. You don't have to worry about having that little packet. You just pull it out of the packaging and insert it, and it'll help to keep that tongue up and out of the way so that you manage their airway. Great little item to have, doesn't weigh a lot, and this one is pre-lubricated. Next thing on the list is going to be your hyphen vent chest seals, and this is for your penetrating trauma to the chest so that you can manage a sucking chest wound. And one of the things that you need to pay attention to is a sucking chest wound. It takes a little while for it to develop, for it to kill you, about 20 minutes or so. So it's not the most important thing to take care of first. Bleeding control is the most important thing. But because we're so far away from help out here, a sucking chest wound could kill you. If it takes you 45 minutes to get off the mountaintop, and that's a good time frame, then that could still kill you. So having a chest seal is a quick and easy way to taking care of that so that you don't have to improvise it. But in a pinch, Don't forget, a chest seal improvised is pretty quick and very effective at taking care of a second chest wound and preventing a tension pneumothorax from developing. Also in the base camp is going to be 2 packages of Quick Clot. We already talked a little bit about why Quick Clot is important and why it's so effective. And 2 packages means that you can take care of twice as many wounds or 1 really big wound. So you might need extra depending on the size of the wound that you're taking care of. Next, we're going to have our triangular bandages, and this is the cravat. And this is just your multi-use item. You can use this to take care of a lot of different things. You can use this in a pinch to improvise a pressure dressing or a tourniquet if you need to. And if that's something that you want to learn, I have an improvised tourniquet video. I'll leave a link to that right up here, and you can go check that out if you want to learn how to do that. But it takes time. The whole time we're making an improvised tourniquet, that casualty is steadily bleeding out. So having tourniquets already pre-made and ready to go is the best way and the fastest way of taking care of somebody. But if you need to, you have to do it. Making sure that you've got multi-use items. The SWAT tee is something that I include in every single one of my kit because it is a tourniquet and it also bumps up the usefulness of the kit and allows it to be used for much more items. So if I run out of tourniquets, I use the 2 here. I've got a 3rd here, or if I need another pressure dressing, whatever the case is, I've got a backup for all of that with just 1 SWAT tee. So this is a great multi-use item. Always include them in their kits. And the last item in this kit is going to be our burn tech. This is first aid for those burns. That's something that you might run into. Obviously, if you're out there and you're around a fire, you're cooking your food and that kind of stuff, having some way of taking care of a burn is going to be one of those important things. So making sure that you've got something, this is one of those great items to have. It'll increase the comfort level of your casualty. You don't want to be playing around with burns. Burns are pretty nasty and they can get infected very, very quickly. If the burn is especially bad, you need to get them taken in and get them seen at a burn clinic. This dressing will help their comfort level and it will also help to make sure that their burn isn't becoming more infected. It's not going to get extra debris and that kind of stuff into the wound and help to keep it a lot more clean. So having this and then wrapping it with some gauze and then some of your ACE wraps. Don't want to go too tight. We want to allow for any particular swelling that might develop. We don't want compartment syndrome to set in, but this is a great way of managing your burns. All right, guys, so that's our base camp kit. And if you were to purchase all of the items in that kit individually, it would come out to $277.26 as of the recording of this video. But we are offering it for $239.99, which is a 15% savings if you're buying that right now. So you're totally welcome to use all these items in this kit and make your own trauma kit. These are the items that I think you're going to need. But if you want to get them for a little bit cheaper, feel free to buy it from us and you'll get that discount. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for hanging out and checking out this video on the Tracker and the Base Camp, our brand new trauma kits that we're releasing to the market. We are looking to help out as much in the outdoors as we possibly can. So if you are out there in the woods, on the mountaintop, if you're doing anything in the outdoors, this is going to be a great couple of trauma kits for you to be able to keep yourself and your hunting party safe, your family, your friends, all that type of stuff. These are 2 great items, 2 kits that I think will help you out quite a bit. If you like the video, feel free to hit the like and subscribe. That's a free way to support me and my channel. If you would like to support me and you need a trauma kit, head over to the mountainmanmedical.com website where we sell our Tracker and our Base Camp. We also have the Yellowstone and the Wind River. That's all I got for you. Thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you guys in the next one.